What's up, everybody? Joe Ringen here again, coming back with another book review. Today, we're going to talk about a surprise, awesome book, Taliesin by Stephen R. Lawhead. I say surprise because I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it was. I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I thought I would. It's not a surprise, as in no one knows it exists, because obviously a lot of people do. Now there's even a TV show about it. But I did not expect to like this book as much as I did. And so there's there you go. Right at the beginning, this is going to be a good review, or a review with good ratings. Jury's out if it's a good review or not. That's up to you guys. But Taliesin, wow, really cool book. But first, before I get into the details, I want to let you all know that besides reading books, I wrote a book. It's called The Ballad of Ages. So if you like kind of cheesy 80s fantasy stuff that could be made for TV movie on a Saturday morning, pick up my book. It's on Amazon. I think you'll like it. All right, so now moving into the review, because this channel is all about bringing books that are maybe not as talked about or not as well known to you guys that maybe you otherwise wouldn't have heard of, because I find a lot of great books from people online, other YouTubers. I want to spread the joy. Although this one doesn't quite fit that track, because I'm sure a lot of you know about Taliesin, or more specifically, the series that it's a part of, which is the Pendragon cycle. And many of you probably know it because it's now a TV series on Daily Wire Plus. Now, I personally haven't seen the show yet. I have sort of one of the things I like to do, like a hobby, is to whenever there's a show I want to watch or a movie, I like to read the books first and then watch it. So, Taliesin's the first book in the Pendragon cycle, and I believe there's 6 books, might be 7. So, I'm probably not going to see the show for a while, but I think I'm going to cruise through the series. So it's funny that came up, because that's actually why I started reading this book. I've seen this book and the other books in this series at like half price books a lot in the shelves. It started like this book was published in '87, so it's not super old. I'm shocked that it's not more popular though. Like, holy cow. And I'm not going to go into the YouTube conspiracy rabbit hole stuff, but I did see a video on YouTube about why is the show not talked about more? Because apparently the show's really good, and if it's at all close to what the book is like, I'm sure it's going to be really good. But the conspiracy is it promotes, or maybe doesn't even promote, but it doesn't put in a bad light Christianity. So Christianity plays a part in this book, and what I assume the rest of the series, and it's not put in like a negative light. And so the conspiracy is that's why the series is getting swept under the rug. I don't know if that's true or not, but that piqued my interest because usually the maxim holds true in my experiences. When something is kind of swept under the rug or downplayed by big review corporations and or whatever media outlets, but a lot of individual people love it, usually it means it's really good. So I said, hey, why not? I'll pick it up. I'll read it. It was at the library, and wow, this needs to be talked about more. It's a fantastic book, and I'm sure the show is good too. But right now we're going to talk about the book. So what is it? What's it about? Why do I think it's great? So, a couple reasons. One, I'll say the cover art on this book leaves a lot to be desired. It seems kind of weird, almost like a cheesy romance kind of book. And I'm like, this is a weird book cover, to be honest. So I don't think the book cover does it justice. I think this is from the TV show, but like, Who are you marketing this to? That's a big not a win. So you could be getting more readers, I think, with a different book cover. But that's the one negative I have of this, honestly. The positives, well, okay, so let's talk about what the book's about. It's about the legend of King Arthur. So I know what you're all thinking. The same thing that I was thinking is, oh, why do I need another series about King Arthur? I know about King Arthur. I saw the Sword in the Stone, right? I saw the weird King Arthur movie with in the 2000s. Like, okay, we've all seen it. We've seen Monty Python and stuff. I don't need another King Arthur. Uh, but this is a different take. It's so good. And Arthur's not even in the story. I don't think he comes up for a few books. This story is like way before he comes. Um, it's definitely a prequel, but it sets the stage of what's to come in King Arthur. Very much like, and again, this is probably, one of the things people don't like. It felt a lot like really biblical in a sense. Like this is the Old Testament, right? And it's setting the prophecies, it's setting the stage, and then later we get the New Testament where Jesus comes, and the Jesus figure would be King Arthur in this case. So it's like kind of like we're in the Old Testament right now in this book, and there's prophets and wars and kingdoms, and it's just so cool. Every box that I love for a book, or every itch that I want scratched from the book that I read, was done in this. um, my back was scratched, right? Like this was so good. Every checkbox, every single one, fantastic. I still haven't told you what it's really about. So, okay, there's two central characters. One, Taliesin, and he's the guy on the cover. He's like a prophet, bard, poet guy. What's so interesting is when I started reading, and this is why if you like King Arthur, you need this series. Because there's so much more to the King Arthur legend, so many more characters and events and places that are true part of the like uh, English or Welsh. I'm not sure where it comes from, to be honest, but that like mythology, um, it's written down. These characters exist in those things, but you never hear of them. But so anyway, so I read for a while. I'm like, these are some goofy names. Why the heck did Stephen our lawhead name his main character Taliesin? Like, okay, I get it's a fantasy story, but it's just weird. It seemed weird to me. But then I started to realize, like, hold on, I think these are actual characters. Kind of like in Greek stories, how there's like characters that show up over and over, like Hercules and Zeus and stuff. Like Taliesin is in the myths, in the poems, in the epic poems of a long, long time ago. Of the again, I'm not a historian. I think Welsh or British or whatever, um, lore or mythology. So Taliesin's a character, and he's this guy. He's the poet, bard, kind of prophet guy. So he exists. That's why Taliesin's here. All right, and there's a lot of other characters like that. So it's really awesome to get a uh, more of an acquaintance with these characters that exist that I never ever would have heard of otherwise. Everyone knows Arthur, Lancelot, Galahad, Guinevere, Merlin, and I'm sure they come later on in the series, but there's also other ones that are here, and it's so awesome. I loved learning about this stuff. Um, and so Taliesin's one of the main characters, and then the other, and so he's on the island of whatever it's called at the time, but modern day England. Um, and then what's cool, and this is where the author kind of takes a little bit of a artistic license, even though I did some research, there are people that believe this to be true. Um, the other character's name is Karis, and she is a princess of Atlantis, the lost, drowned land of Atlantis. In this interpretation, it's Atlantis is not too far from England or Britain, whatever, and so there's the two stories going on between the two. How Taliesin comes to grow into his powers, and how Karis kind of grows into her own. She's a very cool, smart warrior, everything. Very cool character. And so they're separate for like half well, probably 3/4 of the book. And then her story focuses on her how Atlantis is kind of has warring factions, and then eventually there's these prophecies that Atlantis will. I think it was a meteor. I don't know, but basically it gets destroyed. It sinks. We all know Atlantis is gone. But she gets on, takes some of her people on some ships and ends up sailing to Britain. And then they run into Taliesin and his people. And there's all these prophecies going on in the background, like Taliesin. I won't give too much away about how he comes to be or how he gets his powers or where he comes from. And there's all these prophecies about the two. And anyway, so much cool stuff. But anyway, Karis and Taliesin end up falling in love. They meet, they fall in love, and they have a child. And that child is Merlin. So we all know Merlin, right? And that's where the book ends. There's so much more to that. Like, really? Like, there's a lot more to that happens. And there's so many more characters. And what I loved about it is Stephen R. Lawhead, he throws these characters in, and they have a place in the story. Like, they're not just random. Like, they have a place and a purpose. But then you're like, that name sounds familiar. And then you end up learning, yeah, that person is going to be very important in the King Arthur legend going, in the future. And you start to see how they get involved. So awesome. The other thing that's cool is it's based in history too. So like you feel kind of like this could be his like real, like it's historical fiction because it kind of is because it plays with stuff like the Roman occupation and the fending off the Celtic barbarians. Like that's all part of this. So it's kind of like Lawhead does a great job of sort of weaving together like history and fantasy and then hiding the seams. And you're like like I was convinced a lot of times like this could be real. Like this could totally be history. And I mean, sadly, I know it's not in some things, but it's believable enough where it's enjoyable. So I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Cool battle scenes, great like prophecies, great characters, foreshadowing of events to come. The other thing is there's a lot of deep elements to this, a lot of philosophy and theology, and I love those things. And when you can sort of hide those or like subtly put them in a story instead of reading like a philosophy textbook, I feel like you learn more that way and it's much more fun to read and digestible and retainable. And there was a lot of that going on. There are characters because another part of this story that's fascinating to me is like Taliesin and Karis and all these people. They have a lot of their pagan gods and beliefs, and then they come to Britain and they end up they go to Glastonbury Tor and St. Michael's Tower, right? That's where the Holy Grail is. It's very famous and it's there in real life, by the way. So it's kind of cool how it blends that. But anyway, so they go there and they meet these Christian priests who have a huge effect on outcome of events because Taliesin and Karis and some of the other kings that are important, they get converted to Christianity and get rid of their pagan beliefs. And it's just so interesting how that happens. And the author writes it very convincingly, how he supports the one true God of the Bible and Jesus and doesn't like shy away from it and has arguments about the two. And you can see how it's conflicting, but to the people that want to hold on to their pagan beliefs, but then they see the truth and they decide to fight for that. And that's kind of where chivalry is born. And it's just so awesome because, some of this stuff actually happened. There wasn't obviously the magical elements, or maybe there was like, no, I know there's not. But the thing about that I love about this story is, and I really had to stop and think, this question kept like bubbling up in my brain when I was reading this book. Like, and that's one of the reasons why I just absolutely love this. And this book knocked it out of the park because it made me think and ask myself questions and really, really think about them, not just for fun, like, oh, this would be fun, like sort of a thought experiment, but like honestly think and try to find a real answer for the purpose of finding truth, right? And that question that kept bubbling up, it's like, are these things that seem like too fantastical to be real. Um, are we? Is there actually? Did they actually happen? Are we, or are we in a world where we just downplay it too much? And I don't mean yes. I don't mean there's people walking around with magical wands, whatever, hocus pocus stuff. I don't mean that. I mean like maybe the spiritual or the divine sense of the world, the elements, the attributes of the world that we just have blinded ourselves to. Like we can and sort of do live in a fantasy setting. Like there are miracles, there are spiritual beings around us, and we've just sort of blinded ourselves or turned on the blinders and live in a very ones and zeros world, right? And I think that's sad. I think there are some. I think we do have to admit that we are in somewhat of a fantasy world. I promise you, I'm not on drugs. I think there are some fantastical elements in our world. Well, obviously there are. If you're a Christian, you know that to be true. I mean, we had a savior that came and did miracles and rose from the dead. So, like, I feel like we sort of forget that or choose to forget that just because we live sort of mundane lives of just, again, ones and zeros kind of thing. But we absolutely live in a fantastical world, and there's, I think we do ourselves good to open ourselves to that, tint our glass, shade our glasses with that tint. I think we would find more meaning in life. All right. There's that tangent over, but that question came up a lot when I was reading this book, and I really had to find an answer for myself. And it's great. I love when books challenge me to think, especially when they're fantasy books. Like I didn't go into this book thinking I was going to have do mental exercises, right? I love though when you go into books and you learn and you get smarter coming out of it. There are definitely popcorn books out there where it's just, hey, that I'm here to waste time and be entertained. That was not this book. It does entertain. It's a very entertaining book, but you glean a lot of knowledge from it and wisdom, and I love that. It is so good, man. This book is so good, and I'm excited for more to come. So, yeah, a lot of great stuff. I wish this book was more popular. Yeah, and I want to say this too. So the back cover of this version, at least, it says, "Hey, this book is reminiscent of, or reads like Narnia, or something like that, or this book is like Narnia." And I disagree. Like okay, it has some Christian themes, and that's it. That's the only similarity. This book, like, it really does not read like Narnia. Honestly, I'll be honest with you guys. This book read like Game of Thrones, and I'll clarify that a lot for the people that have read both. So it reads like Game of Thrones in the way it's structured and the pace. So it has character point of view chapters. In this sense, it's only the two characters, Karis and Taliesin, and then at the end they became one chapter. So it's not like, and Game of Thrones has like 10 point of views, but more than that. But that's sort of how it's structured. So in that way, it sort of felt like Game of Thrones. The other way is the pace. This book is fast paced, and I love that. It did not spend 10 pages with descriptions of what the forest looked like. Fast paced, and it's very like Game of Thrones in the sense that there's a lot of factions or like families, right? And it talks about that in the politics. There's a lot of politics, court politics, and that felt a lot like Game of Thrones, especially the Atlanta scenes. So if you like Game of Thrones, that style, you'll like this. I should say Song of Ice and Fire. Sorry. I'm getting roasted online already. Song of Ice and Fire. If you like that style of writing, you'll like this. You'll love it. What it's not like of Game of Thrones, it's not overly brutal, not, gory, and doesn't have those kind of descriptions of battles. It has battles and they're very good, described very well, but it doesn't have like the gory stuff. Some, but not over the top. It also doesn't have the like, the adult bedroom themes or scenes that are described over and over. Like it's implied, and I think he does it in a very good way. But it's there. But in those sense, like this would not need to be rated R or TV mature or whatever. This book, it gets all the same things across. It's very adult theme and has adult themes, but it just doesn't need to describe them, which that's what I like. I don't need the description of that. So it's more like Game of Thrones than Narnia. It's not really like Narnia in that sense. I could never see a 10-year-old reading this book and liking it because there are some politics and things involved. But but I love this book, man. I give it a 10 out of 10. Incredible. And I'm so excited to read more. Um and my interest in the Arthurian legends is so much more peaked. I've been researching and interestingly, it's funny how like fate uh just sort of puts things together, the stars align or whatever. Because I am currently reading through The Fairy Queen, which is an epic poem by Edward Spencer, which is sort of tied with Arthur. Well, Arthur it is, but it's the knights anyway. And then this book pops up, it finally becomes available at the library, and I pick it up, and it's right in that theme, and it's oh, I love it. I love it. I might take a little break because I'm going to jump back to The Fairy Queen. That's a huge, chunky book poem where I need to take some breaks while I read it. And this was perfect. So I'll probably read a little more and come back to the second one, which is Merlin, and maybe watch Monty Python again. I don't know. I don't know. I love it. I'm not going to watch the show Pendragon Cycle until I finish the series, though. Hey, that's all I got for you today. If you guys are at all interested in this book, Taliesin, read it. I promise you, it's great. It's amazing. I love it. I wish this was more popular. It blows my mind when I walk in Barnes and Noble why there isn't shelves of this like there are when other books become TV shows. I don't get it, man, because this book is better than all those. Honestly, so good. It's amazing. 10 out of 10. Taliesin. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. You have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you next time.